The story begins at the most prestigious academic institution in the galaxy, the Universalist Academy of Quantum and Transdimensional Sciences. This academy isn't just for scholars, it's a sanctuary for the greatest minds from every known civilization. Its faculty includes entities with hyper-evolved cognitive structures, artificial superintelligences, and alien life forms whose thoughts exist outside linear time. It's a place where only the elite dare to study, and even fewer survive the intellectual rigor. At the center of its current academic obsession lies the Triarch conundrum, a mathematical and physical enigma that has stumped the galaxy's top scholars for over 1,000 years. It's more than just an equation. It's a paradox that, when pursued logically, creates contradictions in reality itself. It's said to be unsolvable, even by sentient computers capable of manipulating 10 dimensions at once. Some even believe it's a trick of the universe, a puzzle designed to humble intelligence. Entire civilizations have tried to decode it, investing centuries of research, energy, and lives into solving it. And yet, after all this time, the problem remained. Enter Caleb Dre, a human from Earth referred to by many aliens as a Deathworlder. The term isn't a compliment. It's a mixture of awe and fear. Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world, known for its unpredictable weather, lethal predators, volatile tectonics, and aggressive biochemistry. Most species don't understand how humans survive it, let alone thrive. But instead of respecting humans, the academic elite of Universalists sees them as uncivilized anomalies, creatures of war, chaos, and instinct. So, when Caleb is accepted into Universalist Academy, it's controversial. His presence is viewed as either a joke or a publicity stunt. Alien professors whisper insults, while others shake their heads in disbelief. Many believe he'll be gone by the first rotation, too dumb or too primitive to grasp even the introductory material. But Caleb doesn't come to show off. He's quiet, observant, reserved in class, polite in tone, and always seen with a worn tablet and a stylus in hand. He doesn't try to impress anyone. He just listens, absorbs. On his first day, in the Grand Conundrum Auditorium, the most intimidating lecture hall in the galaxy, the Triarch conundrum is once again being discussed. A towering holographic diagram spins in the center, surrounded by projected equations and ancient notations. The room is filled with experts, alien scholars who've dedicated their lives to this one problem. The lecture is intense, filled with jargon, and debated in at least 5 spoken and 3 telepathic languages. Caleb sits in the back, taking notes. When the floor opens for comments or ideas, Caleb raises his hand. He doesn't wave or shout, he just raises it, calm and unbothered. The room erupts in laughter. To them, this is absurd. A Deathworlder solving the Triarch? It's the equivalent of a caveman offering suggestions on quantum string collapse. The lead instructor, Professor Althrock, a being of the Zarn Collective known for his translucent form and 12 glowing eyes, addresses him mockingly. He invites Caleb to the board in the same way one might challenge a child to solve a Rubik's cube on a battlefield, but Caleb isn't rattled. He approaches the front without fanfare. No bravado, no speech. Just focus. Then he begins to draw, but not the usual math. Instead of formal equations, he uses a hybrid of diagrams, Terran chaos models, and strange weather patterns. Instead of tackling the Triarch as a pure math puzzle, he treats it as a chaotic system, something that can't be solved linearly. He adds human-designed models like Mandelbrot fractals and climate simulations. He even uses terms that make no sense to the alien professors. Butterfly effect, feedback loop, bounded randomness. At first, this earns more laughter. Aliens whisper things like, "He's just doodling," or "Is this some kind of Terran art?" But something shifts. The laughter dies down as a few begin to recognize patterns. Another AI runs a quick simulation and pauses stunned. Professor Axieth, a psychic consciousness composed of sound and neural resonance, falls silent for the first time in decades, because the patterns aren't meaningless. They're beginning to balance the conundrum. It's the first time in 1,000 years that the triarch conundrum isn't immediately breaking reality. Caleb doesn't finish the entire solution, not yet. But the impossible starts to bend, and in that moment, the galaxy begins to learn a lesson it had forgotten. Never underestimate a Deathworlder. The story picks up immediately after the shock of Caleb Dre the human Deathworlder daring to step up and suggest a solution to the triarch conundrum, the galaxy's most infamous unsolvable equation. Professor Ulthrock, a prominent figure from the Zarn Collective, is the first to react. Ulthrock is a translucent, multi-eyed being whose tone and posture radiate elitism and disdain. Like many others at the Universalist Academy, he sees Caleb as a primitive anomaly barely above animal status. The notion that a Deathworlder could meaningfully contribute to the galaxy's most advanced scientific problem feels, to him, like both an insult and a farce. So, when Caleb steps forward to explain his thinking, Ulthrock mocks him openly. Do enlighten us, mammal. The insult isn't subtle. It's a way to remind everyone in the auditorium and Caleb himself that humans, in the eyes of the academic elite, are seen as crude, instinct-driven creatures, not thinkers. But Caleb doesn't react to the mockery. He remains calm and focused. He's not there to prove his worth to aliens or defend Earth's honor. He's there because he loves puzzles. He's been obsessed with the triarch conundrum for 2 years, studying it in isolation long before he was accepted into the Academy. That alone sets him apart. Most galactic scholars spend decades or even centuries working on the problem, and they do so using conventional logic systems, quantum cognition, or computational over-mind arrays. Caleb's approach is completely different. He says something that draws immediate skepticism. You're all looking at it the same way, mathematically pure, but disconnected from the irrational realities of chaos systems. This is a radical idea. In the galactic academic world, mathematics is sacred. Every being relies on abstract, high-dimensional models with strict logical frameworks. But Caleb is suggesting the opposite, that the puzzle isn't just math. It's a living pattern, part of a chaotic system where order emerges from disorder. Instead of solving it like a classic equation, he treats it like a storm or a tide, or a fractal. The real twist comes when he begins to draw. Instead of starting with algebraic notation or energy models, he sketches visual concepts, shapes, and loops that represent space-time folds, entropy rings, and causal ripples. These are all things galactic minds understand, but Caleb overlays them with something far more Terran: weather prediction models, fractals like the Mandelbrot set, and theories from Earth's chaos science. In other words, he doesn't treat the triarch like a clean puzzle with a single answer. He treats it like a system that needs to be interpreted, not solved. At first, the reaction is predictable. More laughter. To the elite scholars, Caleb appears to be doodling. Some whisper that this is further proof humans don't belong at Universalists. But as he continues, something subtle happens. The laughter starts to fade. Professor Axieth, a psychic being who exists as pure resonance and communicates through thought waves, becomes unusually quiet. This is significant because Axieth is known for continuous mental broadcasts, always narrating, always questioning. But now silence. More importantly, another AI, one of the most advanced computational intelligences in the known galaxy, starts running simulations based on Caleb's visual model. It wasn't designed to process human intuition, but even its cold calculations are beginning to detect something terrifying. The model is working, not perfectly, Not completely. But for the first time in 1,000 years, the triarch equations aren't immediately collapsing into paradox. The chaos factors Caleb introduced are creating feedback buffers. The contradictions are softening. A pattern is beginning to emerge. At this point, the room undergoes a rapid transformation. What began as ridicule becomes confusion, then disbelief, then quiet dread. For scholars who've built their reputations on the impossibility of the triarch, watching a Deathworlder make progress is unsettling. Ulthrach, however, refuses to yield. In his disbelief, he demands, "What? What are you doing?" Caleb's response is simple and composed, solving it. This moment is pivotal. It marks the first time in recorded history that someone has openly declared they're solving the triarch conundrum with confidence and not been immediately disproven. More than that, it's not being done by a galactic elder race, a hive mind, or a celestial AI. It's being done by a solitary human, using techniques from a chaotic, dangerous, low-tech world. In this moment, the balance of intellectual power in the galaxy begins to shift, not because Caleb has solved the problem completely yet, but because he's made everyone realize that their approach has always been wrong. That the galaxy's greatest minds have been trapped in a logic loop, afraid of the irrational, dismissive of chaos, and blind to the intuitive power of imagination. For the first time ever, the triarch conundrum has a crack in it, and it was made by a human. Explores the immediate aftermath of Caleb Dre's presentation, the point where skepticism begins to collapse and the reality of what the human has done starts to shake the very foundations of the galactic academic order. After Caleb walks away from the board, the atmosphere in the Conundrum Auditorium undergoes a dramatic transformation. At first, many believed his drawings and pattern-based logic were just artistic nonsense or Terran eccentricity. But now, scholars and AI minds are scrambling to verify what they've just seen. The visuals he drew based on Terran chaos theory, fractals, and entropy-aware feedback loops are now being fed into models, simulators, and transdimensional solvers. And one thing becomes clear: they are working. The triarch conundrum, long thought to be fundamentally broken or unsolvable, is no longer imploding simulation cores or triggering logic feedback errors. Instead, it's beginning to stabilize. Incomplete. Yes, but far more stable than anything achieved in over 1,000 years. What follows is a flurry of intellectual activity. Scholars rush to replicate the model. Research assistants plug the human's annotated visuals into high-fidelity processing clusters. Autonomous logic matrices begin self-correcting once they're paired with Caleb's chaos-tolerant assumptions. Alien scientists, many of whom mocked him minutes earlier, now fall silent as they realize the implications. Caleb hasn't solved the problem completely, but he's proven it can be solved. This alone shatters centuries of certainty. For generations, the conundrum wasn't just a puzzle, it was a cornerstone of intellectual humility. Professors taught it as the great unsolvable. It was used as a benchmark to judge intellect and restraint. The fact that a human, a member of a primitive, Deathworld species, had made more progress in 2 years than other species had made in 10 lifetimes wasn't just impressive. It was threatening. In the background of all this activity is Ulthrach, now stewing in stunned disbelief. His authority in the conundrum domain has always been unchallenged. He is, after all, one of the few living beings who'd been involved in its study for over 2 centuries. To see the framework he devoted his life to disrupted by a Terran with a stylus and no neural augmentations was infuriating. He tries to resist the wave of growing validation. Coincidence, he mutters, an illusion of meaning. But fewer and fewer scholars are listening to him. Instead, they are listening to Caleb's results, and the results don't lie. Even the beings most insulated from outside ideas like the Faraxi mathematicians and the hive mind. Analysts from the Reckwell cognition cloud begin to whisper about the implications. The truth that no one wants to say aloud is becoming undeniable. This Deathworlder has redefined the nature of the Trier conundrum, but the upheaval doesn't end there. The solution begins making its way outside the university. Through neural webs, data beacons, and astro networks. The model is distributed across thousands of research institutions and federated labs. Everywhere it goes, the result is the same. The equations, once known for causing recursive feedback failures in computing cores, now hold under stress testing. They begin to resolve without creating logical paradoxes or breaking space-time symmetry. Some simulations even suggest practical applications, ways to extract stabilized energy from chaotic fields, or to predict nonlinear events like gravitational surges or reality tears. The implications are massive. Entire industries once limited by entropy or theoretical constraints may now be on the verge of rebirth. If the model continues to hold, it could mean faster than light computation, stable wormholes, or even time-resilient systems. But amid this scientific frenzy, Caleb isn't celebrating. He doesn't issue any grand statements. He doesn't even bother attending the elite roundtable invitations pouring into his inbox. Instead, he returns to his dorm, quietly eats a sandwich, and opens up a digital novel from Earth. He's not doing this for recognition. He just likes solving things. This reaction is perhaps the most unnerving to the galactic elite. They can't understand it. In their cultures, solving a problem of this scale would elevate someone to godhood or at least political power. But Caleb doesn't care. He sees himself as no different than a mechanic fixing an old engine. That unbothered humility further undermines the arrogance that's long ruled universalists. For centuries, beings like Althrok believed they were the intellectual royalty of the stars. But now, a quiet Deathworlder has reminded them that brilliance isn't limited to species, reputation, or age. It can come from anywhere, even from a chaotic blue planet full of storms, wars, and wild ideas. And just like that, the arrogance collapses, not with a bang but with a stunned, humbled silence. Shifts the narrative from the academic halls of universalists to the highest governing scientific body in the galaxy, the Galactic Scientific Council. This is where the political, intellectual, and philosophical implications of Caleb's breakthrough are fully realized and fiercely debated. The Council isn't a school. It's a power structure composed of delegates from thousands of species and civilizations. It operates from a massive ring-shaped orbital station encircling a neutron star, physical representation of the unity and gravity of galactic knowledge. Normally, the Council convenes for paradigm shifts in physics, interstellar treaties on experimental technology, or threats to universal constants. This time, the emergency session is about a single Terran student. Caleb Dre's solution to the emergency session is about a single Terran student. Caleb Dre's solution to the Terran student. Trier conundrum, the problem once thought to be unsolvable, has caused a chain reaction of intellectual disruption. Word of his success has spread far beyond the Universalist Academy. Now, across the galaxy, top minds are running his model and confirming that it works. Not perfectly, not conclusively, but reliably enough to make progress. That's more than anyone had done in over 1,000 years. The reaction within the Council is split. On one side, there are the traditionalists, scholars and politicians who view the idea of a human solving such a problem as not only impossible but dangerous. Leading this faction is, predictably, Professor Althrok, who has now transformed his personal humiliation into a crusade. He argues that this solution undermines centuries of intellectual development. He accuses Caleb of corrupting scientific integrity with intuitive nonsense and irrational art. His words aren't just academic, they are cultural. Althrak and others like him see the human breakthrough as a threat to their prestige and status. After all, if a so-called Deathworlder from a backwater planet can solve what entire collectives of hyper-intelligent species couldn't, what does that say about the rest of the galaxy? But others in the council see things differently. Alarnak, delegate, one of the first to verify the model independently, argues passionately in support of Caleb. They emphasize that the results are real. That's what science is about. What works, not who delivers it. The Larnak representative points out that truth doesn't bow to species or pride. Caleb's model balances the paradoxes of the triarch, maybe not elegantly, but functionally. Still others focus on the implications of this breakthrough. A plasma-based lifeform in the Chamber 1 who represents a society built on entropy. Engineering states plainly that Caleb's solution could change everything. Technologies previously thought impossible, such as stabilized wormholes, reverse entropy systems, and quantum energy harvesting from chaotic states, may now become viable. That possibility is so significant it sends waves of tension through the chamber. As these debates rage, the focus of the council shifts from disbelief to uncertainty. If humans can solve the triarch, what else are they capable of? And more troubling, what other ideas have they kept to themselves? You can sense a quiet ripple of fear forming under the surface. It's not about the puzzle. Anymore, it's about what Caleb represents. For centuries, humans were categorized as unpredictable, emotional, and overly physical, a species shaped by a hostile world and endless conflict. That perception created comfort. They were dangerous, yes, but intellectually inferior. Containment through condescension. But now, that idea is shattered. Humans aren't just survivors or soldiers, they're thinkers. And they think differently. That difference is what terrifies the council. Caleb's use of chaos theory, intuitive modeling, and nonlinear, emotion-guided logic clashes with every convention of galactic academia. He sees patterns where others only see problems. To many aliens, this is madness. But to Caleb, and by extension, to humanity, it's simply normal. Perhaps the most powerful moment in this section is the simple fact that Caleb doesn't attend the council. While delegates argue, accuse, and panic over what he's done, Caleb is back in his room. He's reading a book, eating a sandwich, totally uninterested in the galaxy's politics. That unshuckable calm, that complete disinterest in power or recognition makes the council even more uneasy. Why? Because it means Earth isn't trying to conquer through knowledge. It's not trying to impress. It's just being Earth. And that means there may be more minds like Caleb out there, quiet, curious, brilliant humans who see the galaxy not as something to dominate, but as a puzzle to solve for fun. That's more dangerous than any weapon, because ambition can be tracked, pride can be manipulated, but curiosity is unpredictable. And when combined with the resilience of a Deathworlder mind, the galaxy might never be the same. The final part of the story zooms in on the long-term aftermath of Caleb Dre's historic contribution to the triarch conundrum and how the galaxy responds to it. By this point, the core truth has been accepted. A human solved what the galaxy never could. Or more precisely, Caleb cracked the puzzle structure, providing a functional path toward a solution that had baffled the greatest minds for over 1,000 years. In response, the galaxy does what any grand civilization would do when faced with a once-in-an-era mind. It tries to honor and absorb him. Caleb is offered every accolade imaginable. The Universalist Academy offers him the title of Lord Theorist of the Conundrum, a rank that usually takes centuries to earn. He's also offered the honorary Grand Neural Scholar, a title reserved for cognitive entities capable of building intelligence networks. And on top of that, several planetary alliances nominate him to be chief of the Logic Benders, a high advisory role in a think tank, responsible for guiding the direction of fundamental research across dozens of systems. And yet, Caleb turns all of it down. This moment defines him and reframes how the galaxy sees humanity. Caleb's rejection of fame, power, and prestige isn't based on arrogance. He simply doesn't want it. He didn't come to Universalist to become a figurehead or to change the galaxy. He came because he found the Triarch conundrum interesting. He wanted to solve the puzzle. Now that it's cracked, his work is done. To him, it was never about being the smartest. It was about curiosity. This philosophy stuns many alien scholars, particularly Ulthrock, the arrogant professor who ridiculed Caleb in the beginning. In a one-on-one interview likely requested as a form of damage control, Ulthrock attempts to understand Caleb's motives. When Ulthrock asks, "Why won't you lead?" "We would follow." Caleb responds with something humble yet world-shaking. "That's your mistake. Humans don't want to lead everything. We just want to understand it and maybe enjoy the ride." It's a simple statement, but it turns centuries of alien assumptions upside down. For decades, maybe centuries, most of the galaxy saw Earth as a potential threat. Humanity, with its violent history and deathworld biology, was viewed as a force that would either burn itself out or try to conquer everything. But now, thanks to Caleb, a different image emerges. Humans don't want to dominate. They want to explore, to understand, to create. And they're not afraid to embrace chaos or contradiction in the process. That's their advantage. While other species use logic and mathematical purity, humans thrive in ambiguity, balancing reason with intuition. They take messy, irrational systems and pull meaning from them. Not because they're smarter in the traditional sense, but because they're more adaptable. Caleb's final words reinforce this mindset. When Ulthrock asks him bluntly, "What are you?" Not in a biological sense, but in awe, Caleb doesn't launch into a philosophical speech. He simply shrugs and says, "A Deathworlder, remember?" It's a callback to the beginning of the story, when Deathworlder was used as an insult, but now it carries a different weight. It's not something Caleb is ashamed of. It's why he sees the world differently. Earth's chaos forged a mind capable of finding balance where others saw only contradictions. The story ends with Caleb walking quietly out of the auditorium just as he entered it. There's no triumphant music, no parade, no dramatic pause. Just a man who solved the impossible and didn't let it change who he was. Meanwhile, the galaxy is left to wrestle with a terrifying and exhilarating truth. Humanity doesn't need recognition to change the universe, because their greatest power isn't strength or speed or technology. It's something far more subtle and far more dangerous. Imagination. Imagination forged in chaos, tempered by survival, and guided by a restless, relentless desire to understand the unknown. In that quiet walk away from the galaxy's greatest minds, Caleb reveals the heart of the human spirit, not as conquerors, but as solvers. Not as rulers, but as explorers of ideas. And as the galaxy watches him leave, one final realization settles across the stars. It wasn't brute force, advanced tech, or hive logic that broke the 1,000-year puzzle. It was a single human mind, armed with nothing but curiosity and a stylus.